11 years later, the Dragoness returns and remembers the human who saved her. The Dragoness had been hurt, trapped by hunters from a distant world, her golden scales scorched by fire and fear. Ethan had acted without thinking, rushing through danger, risking his life to save a creature no one dared to approach. And then she had disappeared, leaving him with nothing but memories and the faint echo of wings in the sky. Now, the colony on Nova Terrestra was peaceful. Humans lived alongside technology that made them almost invisible in the vastness of space. The planet itself was quiet green valleys spreading between glass towers and skies dotted with the occasional spacecraft. Life was ordinary, but Ethan never forgot. He would often stare at the horizon, wondering if she had survived. The first sign came from the scouts. They were out near the cliffs where dragons were rumored to appear, scanning the skies for any unusual activity. Normally, dragon sightings were rare, brief, and distant, something to be noted and forgotten. But today, the scanners had picked up massive energy readings, heat, movement, and scales large enough to block out sunlight. Ethan's heart began to beat faster. He felt a strange mix of fear and hope. He told himself it was impossible. Dragons were not meant to return, at least not to humans. And yet, something deep inside him whispered the truth. She was coming back. The colony was not prepared. People ran to the towers, looking up as a massive shadow appeared over the valley. The Dragoness landed in the clearing near the human settlement, shaking the ground with her weight. The wind from her wings blew dust, papers, and even small drones off their course. Her scales glimmered gold and green under the sunlight. Her eyes were bright, intelligent, and somehow remembering. The colony froze. Most humans had only seen dragons in holograms or distant images. To witness one this close was terrifying. Many drew their weapons instinctively. Scouts raised alarms and commanders barked orders. But Ethan stepped forward. He did not reach for a weapon. His hand went up, a small, slow gesture, the same one he had used 11 years ago to calm her when she had been trapped and wounded. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then her massive head lowered slightly, nostrils flaring as she sniffed the air. Recognition sparked in her amber eyes. She let out a low rumble that shook the ground, a sound that spoke more than words ever could. "Ethan," he whispered, almost to himself. The Dragoness tilted her head, as if confirming that yes, it was him. The connection they had shared so long ago had not faded. She remembered him, the human who had risked everything, who had shown her that humans could be brave, clever, and kind. Most humans were panicked. Weapons were still raised, and some began preparing defensive systems. But Ethan moved slowly, deliberately, keeping calm. He walked closer to her, each step measured, each breath steady. The Dragoness did not move away. She let him come, wings slightly folded, tail sweeping the ground like a gentle brush. "This is incredible," said Commander Lyra, standing behind him. "It's a dragon, and it's not attacking." Ethan did not answer. He focused on the creature he had once saved. The scars on her wings were fewer than he remembered, but there were still faint marks of the past, reminders of the hunters and her struggle to survive. She had grown larger, stronger, more magnificent than any dragon he had ever seen. But more importantly, she had remembered him. The Dragoness made a sound, almost a chirp or trill, and lowered her massive head closer to Ethan. He placed his hand against her snout, feeling the warmth of scales, the faint vibration of her breath. People behind him whispered in awe. Some were afraid, some were fascinated, but none could deny the bond in that moment. "Do you recognize me?" Ethan asked softly. Her eyes seemed to answer before words could. She leaned closer, brushing her nose against his shoulder. It was a gesture of trust, a silent message. "I remember, I know you. You are not like the others." For hours the colony watched. The Dragoness remained calm, and Ethan spoke to her in the language they had shared long ago, gestures, sounds, patterns of movement. Others could not understand, but they did not interrupt. Even the drones seemed hesitant to interfere. This was something sacred, a moment between human and dragon that no technology could measure. Then came the scouts' reports. Other dragons were approaching. Not one, but a group, drawn by the energy signature of their companion. Ethan realized they had been followed. These dragons were different, wilder, larger, with scales reflecting the colors of distant planets. Unlike the Dragoness, they did not recognize humans. Their movements were tense, predatory. Ethan stepped back, giving the Dragoness room. She sensed the danger immediately, shifting her stance. Her wings spread slightly, tail curling protectively around her massive body. And then, to the astonishment of the humans, she stood between the wild dragons and the colony, a living barrier. "Stay calm," Ethan instructed the people behind him. "Don't provoke them." But the wild dragons circled closer, curious, aggressive. They tested the boundaries, claws scraping the rocky ground. Some let out shrill roars echoing across the valley. Humans were trembling. Defense systems powered up. Weapons locked onto the dragons. Ethan raised his hands. He didn't shout. He didn't order attacks. He began moving slowly toward the Dragoness, then toward the wild dragons, using patterns they had learned through years of study and experience with the first Dragoness. He mimicked motions, tilted his body, and made low, rolling sounds. He had studied dragon communication for years, but nothing had prepared him for this, direct contact with multiple dragons. Yet it worked. The wild dragons paused. Their eyes flicked between him and the golden Dragoness. She rumbled softly, a deep, vibrating sound, almost like a command. The wild dragons shifted back, watching, listening. Humans could hardly breathe. They were witnessing something extraordinary. A human controlling the situation with mind, courage, and heart, not weapons. "Remarkable," said Lyra, voice trembling. He's talking to them." Ethan's heart raced. One wrong move could endanger the colony, but he had learned 11 years ago that dragons respected courage and trust. Not fear, not weapons, trust. He stepped forward again, making careful gestures, calling out in the language of clicks and trills he had taught himself to understand. The wild dragons hesitated. The golden Dragoness nudged Ethan forward with her massive snout, encouraging him. Slowly the group began to circle away, not out of fear but in cautious respect. It was a delicate dance, human and dragons, communicating without words, without violence, and yet with complete understanding. When the last of the wild dragons disappeared over the horizon, Ethan exhaled. The golden Dragoness lowered her head to him once more. Her eyes glowed with an emotion humans could only interpret as gratitude and memory. She had never forgotten him, not for a moment. The colony was silent, staring in awe. They had witnessed something impossible, a human commanding dragons through courage and connection, not firepower. Ethan looked at the Dragoness and smiled softly. "It's been a long time, hasn't it?" he said. She rumbled, a sound that seemed to echo a yes. Even as the humans slowly relaxed, Ethan knew this was only the beginning. The appearance of one dragon would not go unnoticed. Somewhere out there, other forces, perhaps humans, perhaps aliens, would take interest. They would want to know why a dragon had returned and why it trusted a human. But for now, Ethan and the Dragoness shared a silent understanding. 11 years apart had not changed the bond between them. And though the colony had survived the encounter, Ethan knew he had been given a rare gift. A reminder that humans could be brave, clever, and worthy of respect, even from beings thought to be legends. As night fell, the golden Dragoness lay in the valley near the colony, eyes watching the stars. Ethan sat beside her, feeling the heat of her scales, the power of her presence. The wind carried the scent of her, of fire and earth, and for the first time in many years Ethan felt at peace. And yet deep in the distance he knew trouble was coming. Someone or something would try to take the Dragoness. Someone would underestimate humans, but he was ready. And now he was not alone. The Dragoness had returned, and she remembered the human who saved her. The calm of Nova Terrestra did not last. Even as night fell and the golden Dragoness rested near the colony, Ethan could feel a shift in the air. The stars above were quiet, but sensors in the valleys detected something unusual, something that was not natural. "Ethan," Lyra's voice crackled in his earpiece, tense. "We're picking up multiple unidentified ships approaching. They're moving fast and they're armed." Ethan's eyes narrowed. He had expected that the Dragoness appearance would attract attention, but he hadn't imagined how quickly. For 11 years she had been free, hidden from hunters and alien factions. Now it seemed someone had discovered her, or perhaps they had been searching all along. He looked at the Dragoness. Her eyes glowed faintly under the moonlight, intelligent and aware. She had sensed the danger before the sensors even detected it. She lowered her head slightly, nudging Ethan gently as if to warn him. "They're coming for her," he said softly, mostly to himself. But the Dragoness' low rumble confirmed his fear. The colony erupted in activity. Humans scrambled to activate defensive systems, while scientists attempted to reach the approaching ships. Drones lifted off, scanning the sky. But Ethan knew the danger was beyond simple firepower. The attackers would not be ordinary humans. They were alien mercenaries known across nearby systems for hunting rare creatures. "They want the Dragoness," he said firmly. "And if they get her, Nova Terrestra will be a battlefield." Lyra's voice was tight. "What do we do?" Ethan took a deep breath. "We don't fight them with guns. We outsmart them." He had spent years studying dragons, understanding their behavior, learning to anticipate their movements. He had also learned to combine human technology with the natural strengths of these creatures. Tonight, he would put all that knowledge to use. The first wave of alien ships appeared over the horizon, sleek, black, and dangerous. Each vessel carried weapons designed to track and immobilize creatures of immense size and strength. Ethan observed them carefully, noting their formation, their likely attack pattern, and their probable weaknesses. "Spread out the drones," he ordered. "Don't attack. Just confuse them. Make them think the valley is bigger than it is." Technicians obeyed quickly, launching drones in a wide circle. They projected holographic images of the colony, creating decoys. The aliens' sensors would detect multiple targets, slowing their advance. It was a gamble, but Ethan had faith. Humans had always survived by being clever when brute force was not enough. The Dragoness shifted, sensing the tension. She stretched her wings slightly as if preparing for the fight, but she did not attack. She waited, trusting Ethan to guide the strategy. 11 years ago, humans had saved her. Tonight, she would trust them again. The aliens descended closer, their ships scanning for life forms. Ethan activated the valley's defensive systems, walls of energy that could momentarily block their lasers and heat rays. But he did not plan to use them directly. Instead, they would guide the attackers into traps he had set along the rocky terrain. As the first ship fired, the golden Dragoness let out a deep, resonating roar. Ethan knew the sound would confuse the alien sensors. He gave her a subtle nod and she leaped into the air, wings beating powerfully, creating gusts of wind that disrupted the attackers' aim. Humans watched from the colony, their fear turning into awe. "Unbelievable," whispered Lyra. "She's helping. She trusts us," Ethan said. "And that makes all the difference." The alien ships adjusted, firing again, but the holographic decoys made them miscalculate. Lasers hit empty space or the rocks, causing small explosions but no real damage. Ethan moved quickly, signaling drones to create diversions. The golden Dragoness swooped low, her massive tail knocking down several makeshift towers, sending debris toward the approaching ships. One of the alien leaders, a tall figure visible through a translucent cockpit, shouted orders in a language no human could understand. But their frustration was clear. Every tactic they tried was countered by the unexpected coordination of human and dragon. They had assumed the humans would panic, but instead, humans were clever, precise, and fearless. In the chaos, Ethan remembered the Dragoness memory from 11 years ago. He thought back to the day he had saved her from the hunters, the careful moves, the quick thinking, the courage that defied fear. She remembered everything. The bond they had formed as equals, not predator and prey, was real, and that bond now allowed them to act as one. He gestured toward a narrow canyon nearby. The alien ships, eager to strike, followed their instincts and pursued the Dragoness. But Ethan had set traps in the rocks, hidden electromagnetic nets designed to disrupt the ship's engines. As the ships passed through, several faltered, alarms blaring. Some crashed into the canyon walls. Others turned back, wary of further traps. The Dragoness landed in the canyon's center, wings folded but alert. She let out a low rumble, almost like a laugh. She had never forgotten the human who had shown her that courage mattered more than size or strength. And now she was fighting with him, not for dominance but for survival and perhaps for respect. Hours passed. The aliens regrouped, bringing new weapons designed specifically for dragons. Ethan realized this meant they had been hunting her for a long time, waiting for the perfect moment. The stakes had just become much higher. "They've brought something new," Lyra warned. "Weapons we've never seen, capable of harming dragons from a distance." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then we need to make them overconfident. Humans are better when the enemy thinks they're weak." He devised a bold plan. The colony's energy grids could create temporary fields of light and heat, making it appear that the valley was burning. They could lure the alien ships into thinking the Dragoness was cornered, but she was not. Ethan instructed her to fly above, keeping silent, letting the aliens focus on the decoys. As the aliens descended into the trap, humans activated the fields. Smoke, light, and projections created the illusion of chaos. The Dragoness swooped silently above, her wings casting shadows that confused sensors and soldiers alike. The aliens fired recklessly, hitting nothing but illusions. Then Ethan moved. He directed drones to cut off retreat paths, forcing the aliens into the canyon where the electromagnetic nets waited. The ships faltered, engines sparking, weapons offline. The golden Dragoness landed among them with controlled precision, tail sweeping, wings flaring, and a roar that shook the canyon. For the humans watching, it was nothing short of miraculous. One human, a young technician named Mara, whispered in disbelief. "They're working together. He's leading her." Ethan nodded. This was more than strategy. This was a proof that humans were intelligent, adaptable, and fearless. Aliens could have brute force and technology, but humans had ingenuity and courage, qualities even dragons recognized. As the battle raged, the golden Dragoness reminded everyone of the bond she shared with Ethan. She nudged him, brushed her massive head against his shoulder, and in subtle ways coordinated attacks that no human alone could manage. Each move she made reflected years of memory and understanding, not just instinct. And then came the moment of revelation. In a brief pause of the fight, Ethan saw the memory in her eyes, flashes of 11 years ago. He saw her remembering the hunters, the moment he had risked his life to save her, and the bond that had been forged in that danger. She trusted him completely because of the human capacity for courage and loyalty. The aliens, meanwhile, were growing desperate. Their leader unleashed a new weapon, a long-range beam designed to strike dragons from afar. Ethan realized they could not survive a direct hit. It was time for the final part of the plan. He called to the Dragoness, guiding her toward the cliffs. Using her massive wings, she created a gust that reflected the beam back toward the canyon walls, causing controlled explosions that damaged the alien ships. Humans and drones attacked simultaneously, taking advantage of the chaos. Aliens were confused, retreating from a situation they could not control. The golden Dragoness landed near Ethan, wings folded but ready. She lowered her massive head, her eyes glowing with intelligence and something deeper, recognition and respect. Humans had fought alongside her not with brute force, but with cleverness, courage, and trust. The aliens had underestimated them as they always did, and that mistake had cost them dearly. When the last of the alien ships fled, the valley was quiet. Smoke and dust hung in the air, but the humans and the Dragoness were unharmed. Ethan looked at her, exhausted but exhilarated. She rumbled softly, a sound that humans could only interpret as approval. Lyra approached, shaking her head. I don't believe it. Humans just did what? Outthink aliens and survive. Ethan smiled faintly, brushing dust from his jacket. Humans survive because we think, adapt, and care. Courage is not just about fighting, it's about risking everything for what's right. The Dragoness nudged him again, wings stretching. She had remembered. She had trusted him, and together they had shown that humans were capable of more than anyone had imagined. But Ethan knew this was only the beginning. The alien faction would not give up easily. They would return, stronger, smarter, more determined. And next time, the stakes would be even higher. For now, though, the bond was stronger than ever. The Dragoness and the human who had saved her were no longer separated by fear or time. They were allies, friends, and partners in survival, a reminder that even in the vast reaches of space, humans could earn respect through courage, intelligence, and loyalty. As the first light of dawn touched the valley, Ethan looked at her and said quietly, "We'll be ready next time. Together." The Dragoness rumbled in agreement, her eyes reflecting the rising sun. The night of terror had passed, but the story of humans and dragons was just beginning. The morning sun bathed Nova Terrestra in gold, but Ethan knew it was only a brief calm. The alien mercenary fleet had retreated the night before, but that was only temporary. They had underestimated humans once, and now they would return with greater numbers and deadlier weapons. Ethan stood near the edge of the valley, watching the golden Dragoness shift in the early light. She had spent the night alert, eyes glowing, wings occasionally flaring as if testing the air currents. Though she had remembered him, though she had trusted him, the danger now was bigger than either of them had faced before. "We can't wait for them to come here," Ethan said, speaking more to himself than anyone else. "We need to take the fight to them." Lyra, commander of the colony's defense forces, approached. "Are you sure? They have warships. They've already adapted once. This could be suicide." Ethan shook his head. "It's not suicide if we use our heads. Humans survive by thinking. They survive by being unpredictable, and they survive by fighting for what they care about." The Dragoness shifted beside him, sensing the tension. Her low rumble was a warning but also an encouragement. She had been saved by Ethan once. Now she would fight alongside him. By mid-morning, scouts reported the alien fleet's return. This time they were more organized. Sleek warships, bristling with weapons, spread across the horizon. Energy readings indicated advanced tracking systems, weapons designed to pierce even the strongest dragon scales. But Ethan had a plan. He called together the colony's engineers, tacticians, and scouts. Together, they mapped the terrain, noting the natural cliffs, canyons, and valleys. He combined human technology with dragon behavior, devising traps and diversions that would make use of both the environment and the Dragoness' strength. "Drones will create holographic duplicates of the Dragoness," he explained. "The aliens will think she's in multiple places at once. Meanwhile, we'll guide them into the canyon traps. They'll overestimate our position and underestimate us." Lyra frowned. "It's risky." "One mistake and the Dragoness could be destroyed." Ethan smiled faintly. "Then we don't make mistakes, we outthink them. That's how humans survive." As the alien ships approached, Ethan climbed onto a ridge to signal the Dragoness. She responded immediately, letting out a low, vibrating call that carried across the valley. She soared high, then dove with precision, her wings cutting the wind like knives. The alien sensors picked her up instantly, but the holographic decoys scattered in different directions, confusing their targeting systems. Ethan's drones activated in synchronization, creating flares, smoke, and projections that mimicked troop movements. Alien ships fired recklessly, hitting nothing but illusions. The Dragoness descended suddenly, tail sweeping, wings flaring. She knocked over the decoys, creating the illusion of chaos. And through it all, Ethan guided her, signaling when to strike and when to wait. Humans on the ground watched in awe. This was more than strategy, it was partnership. Humans and dragons working together, each complementing the other's strengths. The aliens had expected easy prey. Instead, they were trapped in a web of clever tactics, unable to anticipate the next move. One of the alien warships fired a powerful beam toward the Dragoness. She dodged skillfully, but Ethan saw the danger. He gestured, and she dove behind a cliff just as the beam hit the rock face, causing a shower of sparks and debris. The aliens were relentless, but Ethan's plan relied on their overconfidence. "Now!" he shouted. The Dragoness roared and leaped into the canyon where the electromagnetic traps were hidden. The alien ships followed, unable to detect the nets through their sensors. Engines sputtered, sparks flew, and the first wave of ships crashed into canyon walls or were disabled. Ethan's drones swooped in, taking out weapon systems on smaller ships. Humans on the ground fired precision strikes, using the canyon's terrain to their advantage. The aliens were stunned. They had underestimated both humans and the Dragoness. The golden Dragoness landed gracefully, her massive body dwarfing the human fighters, but she did not attack indiscriminately. Every strike was calculated, coordinated, showing not just instinct but intelligence. She was fighting with Ethan, not for herself, but for the humans who had once saved her life. Hours passed in tense battle. The alien leader, realizing his fleet was being destroyed, activated a new weapon, a long-range cannon capable of striking dragons from orbit. Ethan's heart sank. One hit could kill her instantly, but he did not panic. He had studied the alien fleet, their weapons, their patterns. Humans survived not by matching strength, but by thinking faster than the enemy. He signaled the Dragoness to rise high into the sky, above the cannon's trajectory, then dove sharply, creating turbulence that reflected the beam toward the canyon walls. Controlled explosions rocked the alien ships, destroying several more. The remaining alien ships retreated, damaged and confused. They had underestimated humans and dragons alike, and now they had learned that courage and cleverness could defeat even the most advanced weapons. After the battle, the valley was quiet. Smoke and dust hung in the air, but the humans and the Dragoness were unharmed. Ethan approached her cautiously. She lowered her head, nudging him gently. Her eyes glowed warmly, reflecting memory, recognition, and respect. "You remembered," Ethan whispered. The Dragoness rumbled softly, a sound that humans could only interpret as acknowledgement. 11 years had passed, but she had never forgotten the human who had risked everything for her. And now, she had fought alongside him, trusting him again completely. Lyra approached, her expression a mix of disbelief and awe. I don't understand it. Humans just outsmarted a fleet and a dragon and survived." Ethan smiled faintly. "Humans survive because we think, adapt, and care. Courage is not just about fighting, it's about risking everything for what's right. And sometimes it's about trust." The golden Dragoness lowered herself beside him, wings folding, tail curling gently around him. She had remembered his bravery, his kindness, and now she recognized humanity in a way no other dragon or alien had. Word of the battle spread quickly across Nova Terrestra. Humans had survived what seemed impossible. Aliens had fled, and the Dragoness remained free. But more importantly, something fundamental had changed. Humans were no longer seen as weak, fragile creatures. The Dragoness' memory and her actions had made it clear. Humans were courageous, clever, and worthy of respect. Ethan looked up at the sky, knowing this was only the beginning. The galaxy would hear of the golden dragoness and the human who had saved her, not just for the bond between them, but for the lesson it carried. Underestimate humans at your own peril. The dragoness shifted her massive wings, sending a gust of wind across the valley. She nudged Ethan once more, pressing her head gently against his shoulder. It was a gesture of trust, loyalty, and memory. She had returned after 11 years, and she remembered everything. Humans and dragons were no longer separate. They had found understanding, respect, and partnership. For the first time, dragons saw humans as more than fragile creatures. They saw them as worthy allies, capable of courage, strategy, and compassion. In the weeks that followed, humans and the dragoness began a new chapter together. Scientists studied her behavior, learning from her intelligence and instincts. Scouts mapped her flight patterns. Engineers developed new technologies inspired by her strength and agility. And through it all, Ethan remained at her side, guiding and learning, his bond with her deeper than ever. Lyra approached him one evening as the sun set. "Do you think she'll stay?" she asked. Ethan smiled, watching the dragoness circle above. "She stayed before. She remembered then, she'll stay now, because we're worth it." The golden dragoness landed beside him, eyes glowing softly. She lowered her head, nudging Ethan's hand with her massive snout. It was a gesture of gratitude, of recognition, and of a bond that had survived time, danger, and fear. Ethan felt a surge of pride. Humans had survived against impossible odds. Humans had outsmarted superior enemies. Humans had earned respect from beings thought to be legendary. And through it all, he had learned that the truest strength of humanity was not in weapons or technology, but in courage, intelligence, and loyalty. As night fell, the valley glowed with the light of campfires and distant stars. The dragoness perched atop a cliff, wings folded but alert, a guardian watching over humans she now trusted. Ethan sat below, gazing at the horizon, knowing that more challenges would come. But now he was not alone. He had her. And together, humans and dragons could face anything. In that moment, the galaxy felt smaller. Humans had proven their worth. The dragoness had returned, and the bond forged 11 years ago had grown into something stronger than time itself. The story of courage, trust, and respect had reached its first great victory. But for Ethan and the golden dragoness, it was only the beginning.